Buckingham Palace has said King Charles spent a short period of time in hospital today after experiencing the temporary side effects of his cancer treatment.
King Charles's health has gotten worse, according to confirmation from the palace. The Sandringham estate, where doctors have been working non-stop, provided the news. His Majesty's condition is currently being closely monitored, according to the official statement. This announcement shocked a lot of people. Outside the estate, a light rain started to fall as word got out. The moment felt particularly weighty as the camera shutters echoed and reporters gathered behind the gates. This isn't your typical update. For the monarchy, it is a momentous occasion. According to sources, the majority of the documents in the king's private study have been removed. With a final entry that reads, "The burden continues," his personal journal, which was formerly filled with appointments, is now open on his desk. A lot of people who have been following royal news for years feel that this time is different. More solemn and subdued. The king signed one final order, a sealed document stating his wishes in the event that he was unable to continue performing his duties prior to his health deteriorating. It has only been viewed by 3 people: Prince William, Princess Anne, and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, this letter is safe in Sandringham's vault. Although its content is unknown, an insider's remark has raised questions. It transforms everything. One question sticks out as the country waits in anticipation. Is this the beginning of what the late Queen had hoped for, or the end of King Charles's reign? Discover what's going on inside Sandringham and how one father's choice could permanently alter the crown's future by staying with us. The moments wait. A silent crisis develops. We need to go back a few months before today's devastating news hit like a gut punch in order to comprehend why Britain is holding its breath at the moment. A few missed meetings and unplanned downtime were the beginning of it all. At first, nothing looked concerning. Charles had always been a machine, working late into the night, taking long walks with his dogs, and getting up early to handle correspondence and briefings. But he started to have a more relaxed schedule early this year. People dismissed it as excellent timing for a 73-year-old man taking over the position, particularly after a 70-year-old queen who served with unflinching determination. That his style would become a little more relaxed made sense. Doctors, however, were raising concerns behind the scenes. Undercover as ordinary check-ins, he had been taking part in a state-of-the-art trial for a targeted immunotherapy intended to fight a sneaky type of cancer. There is an excellent cancer team at the location, Aidenbrooks in Cambridge. The frequency with which he was flown there in the early morning hours to dodge the cameras was little known. Those peaceful rural resorts were frequently used as a front for receiving medical care. Camilla assumed the position of gatekeeper and handled everything with grace. Behind the scenes, she skillfully managed access to him, keeping reporters and politicians at bay while projecting warmth and stability to the public. She scrutinized every guest like a bouncer, according to an elderly palace employee, and William could only have FaceTime with Charles with Camilla's permission. But William began taking up the slack in a discreet manner. He increased his public appearances, took on state responsibilities, and even met with the Prime Minister in private. He presided over the Commonwealth Leadership Forum, an exclusive gathering for the king that served as the most important evidence of the change. Insiders maintained that he was stepping up and not merely filling in, despite the palace's attempt to frame it as a team effort. Then there was Anne, who smoothed the transition between the past and the future and was the glue that held everything together. She allegedly obtained a letter the Queen had written close to the end of her life from Elizabeth's special archive at Windsor, a dusty collection that is rarely seen. One phrase, which was allegedly highlighted in her own unsteady handwriting, said, "If duty starts to outrun health, let clarity guard the crown." However, no one is disclosing the whole content. Early in September, Anne gave Charles this letter. He read it twice, put it down, and muttered, according to sources. She always anticipated it. Then there was a discernible shift. He grew more reflective and quiet. He spent hours gazing out of Sandringham's north windows, where Elizabeth had formally signed documents, while his desk was emptied and he received fewer phone calls. At that point, there was a lot of talk about a sealed note that Charles had handwritten with instructions on what to do in the event that he was unable to handle his obligations. This note was deposited beneath the vault of Sandringham Chapel in a cedar box. Only 3 individuals are aware of its contents. They were all in the same room this morning. Now everything is in its proper position. Something has changed hands, but not the crown. Everything appears to be in its proper position. Although the crown is still in place, something has altered. Even though Charles says fewer things now, his decisions still have a strong, unavoidable resonance. It wasn't a big statement that was the first clear sign that anything was wrong. At a charity event in early September, a fleeting moment that was easy to miss was captured on camera. The monarch, who typically exudes poise, faltered a little as he shook hands with the Ghanaian ambassador. His voice had a gentle edge, as though it held extra weight, and his face, which was always pleasant and lively, appeared weary. The assistants floating just out of sight knew the truth, but the talking heads on TV wrote it off as simple fatigue. It had been 3 days since Charles had slept through the night. A week later, witnesses noticed palace cars arriving long after dark amid what was intended to be a low-key weekend vacation to Sandringham. One of them was an unmarked medical van, and the royal doctor's car was just behind it. The standard statement that the media had been hearing for months was given to them. The king is simply sleeping. But inside those confines, nobody was thinking about relaxation. At last, Anne spoke up to her brother directly rather than in front of cameras. Elizabeth's letter weighed heavily on his lap when she discovered him by himself in a tiny reading room. She stated without introducing herself, "You can't outrun the truth forever." Charles took a while to answer. "I'm not afraid of the truth," he added, looking up. "The hole it leaves behind is what it is." At that point, Anne realized. He was attempting to protect the family from the effects rather than fighting the end. He had missed 4 consecutive events by the middle of October. Without protest, William showed up at Sandringham daily to take over. People became aware. Reporters started using the phrase acting sovereign, treating it as though it were true whether or not it was official. It appeared to adhere. Catherine handled the ceremonial responsibilities with her customary poise. Her posture, however, showed a slight tightness, as though she was preparing for a wave she hoped would not come. Then the phone rang. William's private line buzzed at 3:24 a.m. On the other end was a senior advisor, speaking steadily. These 7 words have the power to transform everything. The present no longer held His Majesty. It was uncomfortably close to the finish, but not quite. Is Mother still waiting for her big day? Charles asked Anne, in a daze of medicine and bone-deep fatigue. The consequences, a constitutional earthquake, and a ruler who couldn't tell the difference between yesterday and now were devastating. In fog, he couldn't lead. And the palace came alive. Lawyers were contacted, medical records were examined, and at last the sealed letter that Charles had concealed for months was unlocked. According to insiders, it just had 1 page. Give the reins to Princess and the Prince of Wales, with full advice if the mind wanders. There was only a new strategy, no last will and no resignation speech. A king deciding to take a back seat for the benefit of society rather than his own life. By morning, everything was moving. Sandringham was tightly sealed. Camilla was nowhere to be seen when a chopper took off for Windsor. She had snuck away in the dark of night, an aide later disclosed. According to her staff, she needed to take a private jet to Florence to gather herself. The reality. She had been struggling with this for weeks, not because she didn't love Charles, but rather because retreating felt like giving up. She was right in many ways. The changeover starts. A crown moving. We must go back a few months before the startling news of this morning surfaced if we are to fully comprehend the precarious position Britain finds itself in today. Like the most unexpected punches, it came in silence. The calendar has a few open times and additional time set up for the king. There were no immediate concerns. Charles has a notoriously hectic schedule. Back-to-back meetings, dog walks, early morning notes, and nighttime briefings. However, his agenda began to wane this year. This was explained by many commentators as a reasonable slowdown. After a queen who kept up a rigorous pace for 70 years, he became king at the age of 73, thus it made sense for him to slow down. But behind the scenes, healthcare providers were voicing their concerns. Charles had been participating in a state-of-the-art trial, a sophisticated immunotherapy designed to treat a challenging type of lymphoma that was masquerading as merely regular examinations. The procedure was performed at Cambridge's Addenbrooke's Hospital, a pioneer in cancer care. Few were aware of his covert early morning chopper excursions. Those pastoral breaks were frequently used as a cover for covert therapy sessions. Regarding Camilla, she took a defensive posture and handled things on her own. In public, she continued to be a reliable friend, arm in arm with Charles, and stayed calm. Behind the scenes, however, she served as a gatekeeper, screening the media and politicians to keep an eye on what was revealed. According to an insider, she examined each guest closely, much like a watchful bouncer. Only with her consent was he allowed access. William appeared to assume his enlarged responsibilities without creating any commotion. He met with the Prime Minister one-on-one, attended community appearances, and took part in state functions. The important thing is that he was in charge of the Commonwealth Leadership Forum, which was the royal family's main priority. According to insiders, the palace's position was a collaborative decision, but his not just filling in, his taking charge. She was also the vital connection between the past and the future. She entered the unexplored section of Elizabeth's private life at Windsor and took out a letter from her final days. Although the whole contents are being kept secret, one passage that was purportedly penned in her shaky handwriting caught our attention. Let clear light shine on the crown if responsibility veers beyond the edge of health. At the beginning of September, and took it to Charles. According to others in the know, he read it attentively, set it out, and paused to think before stating, she always understood the situation. Everything changed after that. He grew silent and retreated, clearing his desk and listening to the peaceful chimes while gazing out of the north window of Sandringham, where Elizabeth had made her declarations early in her reign. At that point, rumors of a classified document started to spread. A genuine, impromptu note from Charles himself that pondered whether or not I should stop. Only 3 individuals were aware of the paper, which was concealed in the Sandringham Chapel catacombs under a cedar trunk. The same scene, the same introspective reflection, the same public and international responses, a country in transition, all of this morning. The monarch was confronted with a new predicament the following morning. It was because a living king decided to take a backseat, not because a king had passed away. Even though it was quiet, this shift was important. The British media, which frequently criticized the royal family, took a careful approach to this change. It was a modest shift in succession, according to The Guardian. Not yet crowned, but no longer the spare, William assumed the spotlight. My father is still our king, he said earnestly from Sandringham. He wants it, which is why I'm here. For him, not in place of him. His remarks resonated with many dealing with comparable family problems, and Commonwealth leaders endorsed them. While and handled the details and delegated tasks to William, Camilla remained silent. Fragile but dignified, Charles now spends his days reading public letters, demonstrating how to take a backseat with grace. Witnessing a pivotal moment in history, visitors stood in the chapel with reverence. The royal family is not taking over. They are learning to respect their roles by taking a backseat. William demonstrates that being able to let go when necessary is a sign of true leadership. The crown is in a son's hands, implying a potential new start for the monarchy as Britain gets its breath. In the background, the palace has made arrangements for the potential of a monarch who is unable to carry out his duties, providing a gradual glide rather than abrupt abdication, and becomes a close advisor to William and helps him make everyday decisions, bringing stability to the royal family.